Liam. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm very glad that Neil didn't get the idea that we should all be giving points for every single talk. Well, we can be thankful that he didn't enact his ideas about giving points for all the talks. Right, so now we can welcome our second speaker to the stage. And Susan Martin is going to be telling us why men are wonderful.
Men are wonderful. Now, why should we think that? And do we think that? My background, amongst other things, is in human evolutionary biology. And it leads me to think some rather strange things about men sometimes. Hands up, all those who agree with this premise. Oh, good. I'm glad to see there's a few at the back. Yes. Evolutionary biology looks at behaviors of our nearest relatives. This is Cleo, who died relatively recently. She'd been at Chester Zoo for a very long time. She looks like a bit of a teddy that had its eyes pulled out and its hair pulled off, but she was very much in charge of her group, in charge of her alphas. This is the alpha male that was there. He was 15, but how long is he going to be there? Because being an alpha takes an awful lot of energy. It might be fun, but it takes an awful lot of energy. So we're not sure. So how is it different with men and women? I mean, obviously it is different, but women's roles don't change biologically as much as men's roles do. And this is the thing that makes me think that perhaps men are wonderful. Now, Barbara Cartland, who probably none of you are old enough to remember, Barbara Cartland wrote this book, but her premise was that men are very wonderful, and as women, we should be waiting as they come in from work with our makeup on and our hair ready and what have you. But with men, again, it's games these days rather than, but these were comics. Some of you may remember them. So here's your man with his chariot and his panther and his superhero looks. And then we have Bunty with the shopping and the ballet. And, 8 laptop computers to be won. We're obviously moving on a little bit there. So men and women are still given this sort of myth that the men are the beating the chest chimps. And the women are the carers. And basically, the female chimps do maintain this role throughout life. Even if they don't have children of their own, they are caring for the group. And so the role doesn't change. Now, male chimps, you're knackered once you've got a son, because basically your son is thinking, he's top of the tree. Let's get rid of him, because I can only be top of the tree if we've got rid of him. So it's much more complicated. I think society does make it harder. Well, we are society, so it's we who make it harder for males to have more than one role. Because you only have one in the animal world, but in the human world. So do we encourage men to be aggressive to remain alpha, but then punish them when they do? I see a lot of this in some of the work I do in courts, because you want the he-man, because he's got good genes and he'll pass them on to your child. But then, as a parent, it's complicated. Wait till your father gets home and finds out what you've done. He'll sort you out. That is still said. That is still said in all sorts. I know we have more complicated roles, but we still live in a patriarchal society. So how do we reconcile a strong protector with an empathic partner? And often we don't. This is part of the problem. So we've got this man who's, in forensic settings, there's a lot of problems. If you go into child custody cases, a man who's ranting and raving is considered horrendous and can't possibly look after the kids, whereas, the woman's sitting there saying, oh, he's awful, and what have you. So and I just like this one. I just thought this was an absolutely wonderful slide, so I couldn't resist putting it in. Poor dog. Should be a little poodle or something like that. But in some ways, and this is slightly tongue-in-cheek because this is the result of a PhD years and years ago, women always maintain some level of caring role. And so they don't have to change a lot of their behaviours unless they choose to. But if you're a male chimp, you could be dead in a ditch before you're 20, especially if you have more than one son, because that's really, really problematic. So if men want to maintain roles beyond being dead in the ditch and who manage to change that role, are they wonderful? I mean, is managing to change a role to be both a protector and empathic? So are men who do manage to change their roles wonderful? And I think, and with all this to put up with, are women more wonderful too? And there's not an answer to this. It's a question more than anything. So I hope you've all got answers.
With your cute little way, will you promise that you'll say you're